It was supposed to be just another quiet evening at St. Mary's Church. The kind of night where the only sounds are the rustling leaves outside and the faint hum of the city settling down for sleep. But what happened that night would haunt everyone involved. A story whispered in hushed voices, a nightmare that refused to die. It started with a whisper, a rumor, a single, chilling message that spread through the small town of Millbrook. Asterisk, something's not right at St. Mary's. Asterisk, no one knew exactly what it was at first, but everyone felt it. An uneasy presence, an undercurrent of dread that clung to the old stone walls like mold. And then came the screams that shattered the silence. Screams that sounded human, yet inhuman. That's when the police got involved, and the church called in Father Daniel Carter, a priest known for his unwavering faith and his recent work helping families battered by unseen forces. But what no one knew that night, behind the heavy oak doors, a darkness was awakening, one that would test the limits of faith, reason, and human courage. St. Mary's Church, built over a century ago, was the heart of Millbrook's spiritual life. Its stained glass windows depicted saints and angels, but none could shed light on what was happening inside those walls that night. The air was thick with the scent of old wood, incense, and something else, something metallic, suffocating. Father Carter arrived just after sunset, his face grim. His eyes darted around the sanctuary, sensing something was wrong. The congregation had long since left, but inside, shadows seemed to creep along the pews, twisting in the flickering candlelight. The first sign was subtle. A parishioner, Mrs. Jenkins, who had come to confession that afternoon, had looked pale and trembling. She whispered about a voice, her own voice that wasn't hers, whispering terrible things. She'd fled in panic, but her eyes told a story of terror that no words could capture. Father Carter listened, determined to help, but as he prepared to perform a blessing, the atmosphere shifted. The candles flickered violently, shadows dancing along the walls like living things. A cold wind swept through the church, despite all windows being sealed. Suddenly, a faint, guttural growl echoed from the altar. The priest's heart pounded. He thought of the stories he'd heard, tales of possessions, of souls lost or damned. But he'd never seen anything like this. As Father Carter began his prayer, the church's heavy oak doors slammed shut on their own. The temperature plummeted so fast that his breath turned to mist. The lights flickered out. Panic rose in his chest, but he pressed on. Then the altar shook violently. A figure emerged, not quite human, not quite beast. A tall, gaunt form with hollow eyes that burned with a crimson glow. Its mouth stretched into a grotesque smile, revealing rows of jagged teeth. The room was filled with a deafening noise, a cacophony of screams, whispers, and the sound of cracking bones. The entity's voice echoed inside Father Carter's mind, cold and mocking. Asterisk, you cannot save what is already lost. Asterisk, Father Carter felt a surge of fear, but he clenched his fists. This was a test, a trial of his faith. He recited the prayers he knew, each word a desperate plea for divine intervention. But the demon laughed, a terrible, guttural sound that made the walls tremble. The entity's form twisted and morphed, almost as if mocking their efforts. It spat out curses, whispering dark secrets of the town's sins, secrets even the church kept hidden. It knew their weaknesses, their doubts. Suddenly, the priest's voice faltered. The demon's power was overwhelming, threatening to consume him. His hands trembled as he reached into his pocket, a small crucifix he always carried, a gift from his grandmother. He held it high, trembling but determined. "Begone, in the name of Jesus Christ," he shouted. The room exploded into blinding light. The demon recoiled, shrieking in rage. The walls seemed to close in, shadows retreating as sunlight burst through the stained glass windows. For a moment, silence reigned. But silence is never truly peaceful after something like that. When the lights stabilized, the church was eerily quiet. The entity was gone, or so it seemed. Father Carter was shaken but alive. He found Mrs. Jenkins outside, trembling but unharmed, her eyes clear again. The congregation was summoned, and a prayer service was held to cleanse the space. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. The air still carried an unshakable coldness. Shadows lingered longer than they should. Parishioners whispered about seeing figures in the corners of their vision, hearing whispers in the night. The church had become a place where darkness wasn't just an outside force, but something rooted deep within. What made that night so terrifying wasn't just the entity itself, but how real it all felt. The fear, the helplessness, the sense that evil wasn't some distant myth, but something lurking in the shadows of everyday life. It was the way the demon knew their secrets, the way it twisted their faith into doubt, and the feeling that even now, something was watching from the darkness, waiting for its next chance to strike. And the worst part, no one left that night untouched. The priest who faced it was never the same. The parishioner who saw her own reflection in the demon's eyes swore she'd never sleep again. The church itself, a place of hope and salvation, had become a battleground for forces beyond understanding. Some say the demon was banished that night. Others whisper that it merely retreated, biding its time, waiting for the right moment to return. And in the shadows of St. Mary's, where the walls are thick with secrets and fear, perhaps it never truly left. Because the scariest thing about that night, it's not the possession or the demon itself. It's the chilling realization that evil can hide in plain sight, in the familiar, the sacred, the everyday. And sometimes, the darkness is only kept at bay by a thin, fragile wall of faith. And as long as that wall exists, the story isn't over. Not yet. Would you have the courage to face what lurks in the shadows? Or would you run, praying for salvation in a world where monsters walk among us? If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to our channel for more.